Now, Al, tell me again why you think this is so special.
Well, the car is special because the 250 GTE was Ferrari's first production car with a rear seat made specifically for the general population, for his rich clientele. Ferrari knew that he couldn't continue to keep his plant alive, and his management team told him so, by just racing and selling race cars to fat cats. So he was slowly going the wrong direction. They talked him into producing a production car, which to Ferrari meant at the end of this run, it was a 3-year run in these cars, it only meant 1,000 cars. Yeah, and of those, we think there's about 750 left. It is a very minimal. What he did, he had a famous race car that campaigned in 58, 59, and 60 called the short wheelbase Berlinetta. And that had the famous 250 engine, which is the same engine in this car, same chassis, drivetrain, and same transmission, with the exception that in this production road car he added an overdrive. The short wheelbase Berlinetta never had an overdrive. At any rate, so when you look at this car, you have to just envision a short wheelbase Berlinetta with a trunk.
With a trunk, exactly.
And everything about it is race-oriented because Ferrari had not yet shifted gears into making cars for the general public, which he didn't have a lot of respect for anyway. He just liked race drivers. And God bless him, I don't blame him. At any rate, the car does have an adjustable ride height. The GTE model sat pretty high over its tire. The tire, yes, what I'm trying to say, in essence, did not completely fill the wheel well, making the car just a little unattractive, although Scaglietti has been quoted as calling he didn't even design it, the GTE as the most beautiful car Ferrari ever made. That's coming from Scaglietti, yes. So anyway, the car has an adjustable ride height, and we have lowered this car to its race or sport configuration, a la the preceding 250 short wheelbase car. Everything in the car, he has, even these seats, the seats have an aluminum bucket underneath here.
Aluminum? That's amazing, because you wouldn't guess that at all.
No, you wouldn't. He could have easily done it out of steel, and it's a 1962 car. They had fiberglass. They certainly had fiberglass Corvettes. He didn't like that, so he was used to forming everything out of aluminum. And so normally you'd have a steel bucket in here. It's a little heavier. Ferrari was still thinking race car. Now, a very nice trunk, which the short wheelbase did not have, but I'll draw your attention to this. This is the cover for the spare tire. And if you'll notice, the cover for the spare tire is aluminum.
Yes.
Now, I can tell you, Ferrari was thinking about the race configuration, and that's what makes this car so special. This car also has a proper Becker Mexico radio. Becker radio made several versions, but what happened, Ferrari didn't install radios in his cars.
Oh, of course not. The music came from the engine.
It did. There's a classic old saying that Ferrari salesmen use when a client asks them, well, where's the radio? And the salesman at that point, he would point to the gear shift and say, that's the selector. They'd point to the throttle and say, that's the volume control. Another thing Ferrari didn't do, he didn't put mirrors on. So these famous Talbot mirrors are a very graceful and elegant design that you will find on most Ferraris. The mirrors and the radio were always dealer installed, but they were encouraged to use this mirror because it was pretty.
The business end.
But notice this elegant little thing here. The engine, the famous 250 series, this is the engine that was created, I think, in 1954. He wanted the engine to be capable of being expanded, getting larger, more horsepower, but also had to be beautiful. 3 carburetors from the factory. It has stainless steel tube headers from the factory. The only difference between this engine and the short wheelbase Berlinetta is that the short wheelbase Berlinetta engine was dry sumped. Now this has a wet sump engine, just like your passenger car. It's got a dipstick and so on and so forth. This car is equipped with the Weber DC40 carburetor, which I believe, well, I know was part of a power pack kit that was sold to customers by Ferrari from the factory. They didn't advertise it, but if you were buying a GTE and you wanted to say, hey Enzo, I need a little more power, well, then you could buy.
He had a solution.
He just happened to have it on the shelf, and he'd get to reach up there and get the larger carburetors. The car came originally with DC36s.
These are 40s?
These are 40s, and also the power kit included a camshaft and also headwork. Because Ferrari knew these small displacement engines, they like to breathe. You can't keep stuffed up. And so if you want power, you got to get the gas in from the top and then right back out. And so there was headwork in the power pack. At any rate, that's the beautiful thing of it. It's a completely drivable on the street. It's got a radiator big enough to serve a Mack truck. It will not overheat on you in the hottest days. Got disc brakes all the way around.
Yeah, that was a nice addition.
It is. It starts and stops on a dime. And this car has been fitted with new springs all the way around, leaf springs, coil springs, and extra heavy-duty anti-sway bar in the front, so it will handle very well.
Talking about handling and driving, you took it on a Ferrari event.
I did. I was pleased to take this car on something called the Ferrari of North America Challenge Rally. And as a result, they had only 2 classes, contemporary cars and 1973 and earlier, which was the vintage class. So in the vintage class, we fell into that category, of course. It was a 3-day affair, and each day there was a truncated track time for the cars.
Right.
And I'm proud to say the old GTE with her power pack, we got the maximum points and for it and had a better time.
What's the particular history on this car?
The previous owner had it, I think, for 12 years. He spent a lot of money on it. He'd had it repainted. The color of this car in the sunlight is unlike any other Ferrari you will see. It's the prettiest, bloodthirsty red. It just wants to go out and blow the doors off of somebody. And so you will really enjoy the color of the car. It was sold originally in France. I've checked into that. It went to France. Then it had an unknown history. Appears in Pennsylvania. It had been partially restored by the gentleman I bought it from, and I finished it up and gave it a great deal of tender, loving care, and the car really responds to that. You're going to have a lot of happy hours in this car. It has a beautiful tone. Ferrari, if he had a shortfalling, and it may have been something to do with the Italian law. When you got a car from Ferrari, a production car, he had it so stuffed up with mufflers, you didn't know it was a Chevrolet or a Fiat or a Ferrari. This car came with 4 mufflers on it, 2 on each side. And so it was comparatively quiet. Well, in the essence of having a good time and the spirit of the venture, I've removed all 4 mufflers. The car is straight piped. It gave a little more power, and it sings.
Like you say, they're overlooked. You don't hardly see them anymore, and too many of these have fallen into the category of donors for rebodies, and that's what I think makes this all the more special.
It's all the more special, and even back in this time, Ferrari on these vents on the side of the fender, they're actually functional. They let heat out.
Yeah. See,
he didn't just put a vent on there because he thought it'd be cute. I've always appreciated Ferrari. When there's a hole in a Ferrari, it does something. It either lets air in or out.
There you go.
And if you will look at the front of the car, pardon me, the front of the car is very reminiscent of the Lusso. The Lusso, they extended this gorgeous hand-formed lip. They brought it out just a little further, but there are several series of GTEs. This is Series 1, which has this beautiful, delicate little Frenched. And in some of the GTEs, he moved these driving lights over to the side, out of the grill, which is unfortunate because this gives it the beautiful look of the 250 short wheelbase or long wheelbase California Spider, and which we all aspire to but can't afford.
So there again, you just don't see them in this kind of condition anymore. That's what's so nice about it.
Well, thank you, Barnaby, and I know that you, as a new custodian and caretaker of this wonderful car, you will continue to improve it. There's always things to be done on cars like this, but it's completely roadable today.
Well, that's good, because we're going to road it over to Concorso Italiano.
I think you should, and you might even, if you dust it off, you might even win something.
Thank you, sir.
What a pleasure, Barnaby. Good luck with it.
Yeah, thank you.